It feels like in New York, we're close to closing down the schools again. Just my own guess is that it's very possible after Thanksgiving, we're going to see something like that. This is the biggest. There are more kids going to school, students going to school in New York City than in any other place in the country. And I think it's only about 300,000 or 400,000, and which is less than half, maybe even close to a third of the normal amount of kids going to school. They're going remote. There's a huge percentage of kids who are just sort of like lost. I mean, not literally lost, but they're not showing up for remote school. They're not going into school. I mean, this is a very difficult time. And part of it is obviously, or a big part of it is that we can't prioritize sending kids to school and shut down everything else because there's not enough support from the government. Part of the problem why there's not enough support for the government, because there's a significant portion of the country that does not believe that this is real. And part of that reason is because of idiots like Greg Gutfeld on Fox's The Five. Listen to this. Just the numbers are stunning right now. If you think, and this is just off the top of my head, because every day we would read the numbers on the show. A month ago, we were at 80,000 new infections a day. I don't know what the number is today. I suspect
172,000.
More than double.
Yeah.
More than double. Today, we're at 1,400 deaths a day, somewhere around that. Understand that deaths are a 4 to 5 week lagging indicator of where we are in terms of infections. If we have more than doubled in a month to today in terms of number of infections, we could possibly double in a month from now in terms of deaths per day. And at one point, we're also going to hit.
I'm sorry, it was 149,000.
149,000. Okay, so about
yesterday.
double anyways.
Yeah.
And at one point, we're also going to hit a threshold where we do not have the capacity in ICUs to deal with all the very sick people. And that's not just a question of beds. That's a question of medical personnel. And then listen to this guy going on national television and saying this type of thing.
Juan and the governor, I'm thinking of becoming a liberal, because you can trash people who have to make the cost benefit risk, the adult risk decisions. You can trash them. And then when they do the right thing, you could say, well, no, that's not good enough. Even though I didn't share the risk at all. I had no skin in that game, and I can still say that. Here's the fact. Here's the bottom.
Pause it, please. I'm sorry. We're talking about someone who doesn't have risk in the game. The people that are dying of COVID-19 right now are disproportionately workers on the front lines, essential workers, people delivering you your sushi at night, right? Those are the people that are hurting. That's why it's about 4 to 3 times the rate for Black and Latino Americans and Native Americans in this country right now. So we're talking about risk assessment. You get to go home and have everything delivered to you because you're rich. Sorry.
No,
line, okay? The mortality rate is 0.65. It has been declining consistently. That's 65 die out of 10,000 cases, all right? We're entering a stage of manageability, and it's only the increase in hospitalizations are really due, let's face it, to as the weather gets colder, people are going inside, that's going to cause a spread. However, the number of hospitalizations is not affecting non-COVID patients. What does that tell you? That we did the right thing with capacity, that the worst state right now is Wisconsin, has 10% COVID patients in the hospital. That's nothing compared to what was going on in the spring or in the first wave of the pandemic. So we are not at a crisis moment. We have to pat ourselves on the back for what America did. Let's talk about this vaccine, because it's pretty freaking amazing. It doesn't have any of the virus in it.
Pause it 1 second. This effing moron. Okay, congratulations. We're down to 0.065 on a thing. That means 65 people out of 10,000. 1 month ago, we had 90,000 less cases per day. So now, today, whereas 1 month ago, we had 80,000 cases a day, 0.065, 6 times 8, 500, 600 people. It was a little bit higher than that, but let's just say 600 people dying a day, and now we're closer to 1,400. This moron apparently doesn't understand trajectory.
Well, what I understand is, do you remember? Sorry, go ahead.
Also play the clip of him desperately calling for Mitch McConnell to not stand in the way of a COVID relief bill that would mitigate the cost benefit analysis that he's talking about that people need to make. Let's play that clip. Cue that clip up. Oh, it doesn't exist because every day he went into work, it occurred to him.
I was wondering where that was.
I was like, wait.
To him to say, hey, this cost benefit analysis that I think is so important that you shouldn't be shaming people about. Why don't you ask the leader of your party to do something about it? Unbelievable.
And why don't they have a full staff in studio?
And this guy sits in his mansion out in Long Island.
Yeah.
And just looks upon everything. He's like, I can't believe people are shaming people. Oh my God, give me a break. Why don't you sit a little closer to your colleagues?
What I don't understand is 8 months ago, in March, like Kennedy, the other libertarian, because he's libertarian on Fox News, the other comedic libertarian who has a show. I remember same exact argument was being made by her, and they literally took her off air for like several months because of that. And they're allowing this behavior again, but this time it's not on like Fox Business, it's on Fox Mainstream at this moment.
Right. It's unbelievably reprehensible. There's no doubt the vaccine has the potential of being a big success story, but it's going to come after there are going to be hundreds of thousands more dead Americans between now and we get to even close to saturation point that we need for vaccination.
It takes such a specific kind of stupid and cognitive dissonance, but that comes from your own stupidity and lack of understanding of the world, to not connect the numbers you're seeing with deaths to the actual pain that people are feeling, right? Like, and that's what I always shocks me when I watch these Fox hosts. Like, they're always, talking about meritocracy and, the smartest people rise to the top, and right? Like, part of being smart is understanding and connecting real life data to what's happening and visualizing it and understanding that people are suffering in this insanely acute way. I mean, people get COVID and don't feel right for months after. Like, are you volunteering, Greg Gutfeld, to get everything back to normal? Why don't you make the risk assessment if you think this is so important and put yourself out there on the front lines?
Because it goes up against his short-term cost benefit analysis, which is exploiting workers makes them money. That's the business model of the Republican Party. And as long as that's the business model, they're not going to be taking into account real math and real human lives.
And think long term, right? Like, are you an animal with like a very I don't know, a frontal lobe? What's the right part of the brain, right? Like, I don't know. Think long term. That's also a part of being a thoughtful human being existing in society.
On some level, we're maybe giving him too much credit for actually being sincere about this, because there is no doubt in my mind that we could compare the number of times he has called upon Republican leaders to provide resources for people to not have to make that cost benefit analysis. We could compare the number of times he has spoken out about that on his television show with the 4 people who died at Benghazi. 4 people are dying in this country in 15 minutes. Any given 15 minutes. It's probably more, actually.
Well, Sam, wait till they do the Christmas special, because the war on Christmas is really going to be about COVID. And God forbid you don't spend time with your family on Christmas and get COVID.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, it's just, you can't do those two things. You can't stay home. You have to spend money. You have to be with your family. You have to worship Christ in the Christmas tree.
There are 60 people. You have one person dying a minute in this country now.
Very
Every
Christ-like
60
not to
seconds,
care about that, speaking
there
of
is
Christmas.
a person dying in this country of COVID. Every 60 minutes. Every minute. There is a person dying of COVID in this country. Maybe it's closer, like a minute and 20 seconds or 10 seconds. And you think about how many hearings the Republicans held over Benghazi, how many hours of television were dedicated. I am sure that Greg Gutfeld could fill weeks of episodes with how I decried what was going on with Benghazi because of those 4 people who died. There are 4 people died before during the course of his rant we just watched.
Maybe we should blame Hillary for COVID, and then they'll care about COVID.
How many policies did they put in place after 9/11, right? Of course, one of the most tragic events in our history. How many multiples
2 days.
How many multiples of people have died due to COVID than the 3,000 plus, right, on 9/11? I mean, I can't do math, but it's tens of times over. And we changed the way we do everything in this country, everything. And now it's just, no, go back to normal. I want normal now.
It's not just stooges like Greg Gutfeld who are promoting this the idea that COVID is not particularly real. It's not a crisis. We don't have to worry about any of these things.